Hello, I'm Dana Perino along with Pam Bondi, Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Fox News alert: the nationwide manhunt intensifies after 3 more suspicious packages are sent to high-profile Democrats, this time targeting Joe Biden and Robert De Niro. The FBI is urging the public to come forward with any tips that may help track down the suspected bomb maker. And Fox News is now learning authorities are honing in on the region of interest in the investigation. Trace Gallagher is standing by with the latest. Trace.
Hi, Dana. Fox News is now confirming that Florida is a region of interest for investigators, and that connects with the reporting of our corporate cousin, the Wall Street Journal, saying some of these packages came from Florida, which is an indicator that the postal markings on these envelopes are providing key evidence. Today's targets include actor-director Robert De Niro and former Vice President Joe Biden. In fact, Biden had 2 packages addressed to him, and the package addressed to De Niro's Manhattan office was actually delivered yesterday, but not identified until early this morning. That brings to 10 the number of devices now intercepted and recovered. None of them exploded, and there are reports that some of the pipe bombs did not have viable detonators. But New York police say all of the devices were treated as live and dangerous, and they said this about the packages sent to New York. Watch.
As to the devices located in New York, which contained a powder, the initial analysis indicates that the powder in those particular envelopes did not present a biological threat.
All 10 of the packages were sent in manila envelopes with 6 American flag stamps, typed address labels, and a return address of Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, whose name is misspelled. President Trump immediately condemned the attempted attacks yesterday, but his critics continue to blame him for ratcheting up the inflammatory rhetoric, though the GOP has blamed Democrats for inciting violence against Republicans. Today, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said the idea that any of these attacks were at the hands of the president is, quote, absolutely ridiculous, and that he continues to condemn violence in all forms. Dana.
Thank you, Trace. President Trump reacting to the news at his rally in Wisconsin last night.
My highest duty, as you know, as president, is to keep America safe. Any acts or threats of political violence are an attack on our democracy itself. We want all sides to come together in peace and harmony. The media also has a responsibility to set a civil tone and to stop the endless hostility and constant negative and oftentimes false attacks and stories.
All right, we'll take it around the table. Pam, could we start with you? Just Trace Gallagher saying that we can confirm now that they're honing in on Florida as a possible place where these packages were sent from. What can you tell us?
Well, without details specifically to Florida, as a career prosecutor, I've seen so many of these cases with suspicious packages, and there is a wealth of information, Dana, in these packages you wouldn't believe. I mean, even the duct tape. I've had a murder case. We got to print off of the duct tape. Stamps that you used to lick. Now we have touch DNA. So if they even touched the stamp, we could get DNA off the stamp. As to the post office, we can even get the origin as to where it came. And I think they're working on all that. Was it well planned? Yes and no. Yes, in that they all went out simultaneously. However, no, in that, names were spelled wrong. Some of the addresses we know were wrong and got returned to sender.
You think that could have been on purpose, though?
Maybe. But I know that they know a lot more than we know, and that's how it should be right now. And I really have no doubt that they will catch this person, and very fast. I saw the president yesterday at the White House, and he was so somber. You saw him at the. He was so somber, and very seriously, everyone's taking this, and FBI's all over it.
Greg, let me go to you then, and the ongoing conversation. You saw any of the activity this morning down there?
Yeah, well, I don't know what time it was, but I'm a few blocks from there, so I woke up to the helicopters that were, I guess, above me for at least a few hours. Wow. And I got up and I told my wife, I go, something's happening. It's definitely downtown, and and then it went on for like a couple of hours, and found out it was at his restaurant.
What did you think of the conversation today that was inevitable about President Trump, his tone, him saying that the media needs to watch its tone?
Well, it is. With all of these things, you're going to get finger pointing. And I think the thing is, everybody can point their fingers depending on what group you belong to. And so it's natural. It's hard for me to take advice from the media over heated rhetoric, because if you were to subtract the heated rhetoric of Trump, let's say the caustic behavior, the jokes about sleepy eyes and lock him up, if you took that all away, right, and said like Trump didn't even exist, you would still have speakers on campus being harassed. You'd still have Antifa chasing down people on streets. You'd still have politicians inciting face-to-face harassment. You'd have Kathy Griffin, Johnny Depp, Madonna. They did all their stuff early on before a lot of this stuff. You have Mika obsessing over the 25th Amendment. So it's all, and you have weird, at times, people defending Antifa. So essentially, you've had 2 years of questioning Trump's sanity, calling him Hitler. And you're upset because he made a joke about a body slam. It doesn't work for me.
No. It does. I think that the left feels differently, Juan. I don't know if you've heard from anyone today.
Yeah, I think the left feels like, it's sort of difficult moment for all of us. It's a very divided country right now, and I think it's kind of sad that we have reached this point. But I think people on the left are kind of taken aback that the president last night seemed to be more presidential and saying, you know what, we need to unify, we need to come together, you can't attack political opponents. And then this morning, he shifts again, as you were suggesting to Greg, and says, hey, the mainstream media needs to clean up its act in terms of setting the tone. The response has been pretty clear from Jeff Zucker at CNN, the head of CNN, and others, saying that the tone is really set by the politician, by the president. And this is a president who has talked about, Second Amendment people taking care of Hillary and body slamming reporters, the press is the enemy. I can go on. I mean, everybody knows this litany, even down to Charlottesville, with fine people on both sides. So I think that there's a sense that really, his instinct is to be a combative president, and that in fact, as a political strategy approaching the midterms, he sees the division as firing up his base. And I think a lot of people are just worried that we can't, as an American people, keep going down this path without respecting, even, dare say, loving each other as fellow Americans.
Last week in the NBC Wall Street Journal poll, 90% of Americans said that we are the most divided that we've ever been.
Yeah.
So we actually agree on something, at least.
I guess.
But the conversation that we could have about rhetoric could have happened without these suspicious packages.
That's true. It's been boiling up for a long time. And just talking about tone, as Juan brought up, look at our table. And we make fun of Crooked Hillary, and we say Pocahontas, and we make fun of Spartacus, and we...
That's just you.
That's true. And we go after people's policies, and we mock them if they're being deceitful and what have you. But I don't think anybody at this table says, this person is a Nazi.
Right.
This person hates other ethnic groups. I want to see this political opponent, I want to see harm done to that person. And I think we're pretty responsible at that table. Remember when Steve Scalise was shot by a Bernie bro? No one at this table blamed Bernie Sanders. And Bernie
Or Rachel Maddow.
Rachel Maddow and Bernie Sanders himself never accepted responsibility. Pelosi never accepted responsibility when people raised questions about Democratic rhetoric. And Greg laid it out perfectly. The list is long. People's ribs have been cracked. People have tried to be stabbed. Cars have been firebombed. Anthrax and ricin has been sent around. And you look at people like Kathy Griffin or Snoop Dogg or Hillary Clinton the other day saying, we don't have to be civil. Sometimes we have to be uncivil. We don't ever make Democrats accessories to the crimes politically. What the left is doing now is they're trying to make Donald Trump an accessory to these attempted mail bombings and saying, you're an accessory, and therefore you need to stop attacking the media and you need to stop attacking Democrats before the midterm elections. And I don't think he has a responsibility to do that. I agree. Trump talks tough sometimes. Sometimes it's too tough. A lot of the times he's being tongue-in-cheek, and the media has no sense of humor, and they don't get that. But I agree, sometimes he does cross the line. But when you're slamming someone in a video, or you're going like this, and you're mocking someone, get punched at a protest, it's a little different than when the media calls you a mentally ill Nazi that needs to be taken out, or fetishizes your son being raped. I agree everybody needs to come together, but both sides need to look in the mirror, especially the media.
All right, we're going to keep this going. We have a big show for you. President Trump has big plans to seal the midterms for Republicans. We have all the details and the secrets ahead next.
Where the whiskey drowns and the beer chases my blues away. I'll be okay.
President Trump is going all in for Republicans the home stretch of the midterms. He's planning on hitting the campaign trail for at least 10 more rallies in the last 6 days before the elections. In Trump's grand finale, the president is reminding voters what this election is all about.
This will be the election of the caravans, Kavanaugh, law and order, tax cuts, and common sense.
So Dana, because he's holding all these rallies, I saw him yesterday, and he was very somber, of course, at the ceremony on opioids. And then the man's going nonstop. He's
going to do 2 a day.
Speed on.
2 a day.
Right. Speed
like
on.
football practice.
It's crazy. He's working so hard. Will his laser-like focus make a difference in these midterms?
Well, it was the strategy that worked for him in 2016, right? Flood the zone, just be out there all the time. A lot of sports metaphors. How are you feeling?
Yes.
You like it? You like it?
I don't know. I don't like this kind of Dana. Bring back the dog Dana.
Okay. Well, speaking
He's like
of
a big,
dog
fluffy,
years,
excitable dog who's out
he's
there
all the time. Look, it's really close out there. Like one moment you can think, wow, the Republicans can hold on to this thing. The next thing you think, whoa, maybe not. Because there's so much enthusiasm. There hasn't been this much enthusiasm since 1966. What was happening in 1966? Well, the country was having a big debate about expanding the war in Vietnam. So this is like we've been having, we've said, Greg pointed out, I think started in 2015, we started this national civics lesson. And now everybody's engaged. Look, it's good to have everybody engaged. You've got to churn out your base. A couple of things I'd point out. The Real Clear Politics average, generic ballot +7 for Democrats. Republicans think that allows them to keep in range. Just for comparison, in 2006, when the Republicans lost the majority, the generic ballot was +11 for Democrats. There's no doubt Republicans are getting crushed by retirements. 44 this year. In 2006, only 17. But I would also point this out. Given at this rate of how close it's going to be in the House, even if the Democrats take over, take a watch. I don't think Pelosi can become Speaker. There's too many Democrats who have pledged already not to vote for her if they win election. So we could have some really big sort of leadership vacuums that are coming up because Speaker Ryan is leaving. You're going to have a fight on the Republican side. So if you think it's going to be over on November 6th, it won't.
It's going to keep going.
Yes.
Either way. Either way. Juan, what do you
It'll be
think
an overtime.
Good job.
Thank you.
Juan, will they be able to get it over the goalpost? No. The blue wave, this blue wave we keep hearing about, I feel like it's turning into like a little pond that's starting to dry up. What do you feel about that?
It sounds like that. If you look at the numbers, it's definitely possible now that Republicans, as Dana was saying, would remain within range. I don't know that you would say that it's the case that, you think Republicans now will retain, but it's just not as large, Pam, as people had been previously saying. So I think that there's a lot of sense among people that the dynamic has shifted, one, since Kavanaugh drove up the enthusiasm on the Republican side. But I must remind you that the Democratic enthusiasm is extremely high. So it came up to match it. The key thing here, I think, in terms of talking about President Trump's attitude is that this is a referendum on President Trump. It's hard to get away from it. What we see in the poll numbers is people saying they're voting to oppose Trump, they want to check on Trump, or they're voting to support Trump. The people who are voting for the check right now way outnumber the people who are voting to support Trump, but not in his base. And the second point I'd make is you look at where Trump is going. Several stories today indicate that he's going to places where not swing districts outside the big cities where the House is going to be determined, but oftentimes going to rural areas in states where his base is located. And that has some Republicans, which is curious to me. The one thing I heard today that caught my attention, Republicans saying, you know what, Trump's already focused on 2020. And this is really, so the midterms are about Trump, and of course 2020 will be about Trump.
Well, Jesse, Juan made a good point about, they're getting away from the caravans. They've stopped talking, their radio silent on the caravans now, and now they're moving on to health care, what Juan said. Do you think that'll be enough to help them?
No, I think they need a little help because 7 in the generic congressional ballot's not going to cut it historically. Trump's a closer. He closed on Cruz. He closed hard on Crooked. He's now closing hard on the midterms. And he always does rise to these big occasions. If you think about the State of the Union or foreign trips or debates, the difference this time is his name is technically not on the ballot. Whereas, Obama had big coattails in these generals and he kind of swept people in. But remember, the midterms, he just got shellacked. Now, this is going to be a big big test of Trump's political capital if he could face on these historic headwinds, because his party usually loses in a situation like this. But despite the historical headwinds, he's got a lot going for him. He's got the hot economy, he's got a fired up base, and the caravan's playing right into his hands. But the October surprise we thought was going to be Mueller. And Mueller has said, you know what, it's probably going to come after November. Now this mail bombing scenario is the October surprise, and that could go either way. I just know Speaker Pelosi, if she does become Speaker, you're talking Trump tax returns, impeaching Kavanaugh, and they're going to go they're going to reopen the Trump-Russia investigation. It's going to be scary.
And do you agree, Greg, that that's not going to help Pelosi by saying that?
I wasn't listening, Pam. Jeez. Why do you do this to me?
I don't think it's going to help Pelosi. What about you?
All right. I think Trump's not competing against the Democrats. He's competing against the news, right? Whenever there's a space, he can fill it with Trump stuff. And when there's a big story, then he kind of gets pushed aside. The Democrats their message right now is working for them, which is we're not that guy. That's all they got. We're not that guy. I believe competition helps, so I would like to see a good Democratic Party. That would help improve a Republican Party and Trump. So I have the message for 2020, but I don't know if I should share it.
Please share it.
All right. I believe that they have to stress unity because they have to liberalize Trump's message, right? Trump's message was make America great again. It was about one country, patriotism. If the Democrats could just reshape that, because they've created so many rifts between gender, race, sexuality, sports fans, entertainment choices. Wherever there are liberals, there's division. So what they could do, the idea of America as a family, right? That all different kinds of families. Families could be any kind of family, but we're all in this together. That would be basically taking Trump's vision and moving it a step further. If they actually believed in that, they would do two things. They'd separate themselves from identity politics, which people are tired of, and two, they'd have a winning message.
You know, I'm just so struck because I have such a different view.
Well, sorry, Juan, it's going to have to wait because a big move by President Trump. He's ordering hundreds of troops to the southern border as the caravan pushes north. That's next.
President Trump telling the massive caravan headed north through Mexico to turn around. This as he is sending signals at least 800 troops will be arriving at the southern border to help stop the migrants. Trump is also continuing to use the issue to pound Democrats.
As we speak, the Democrat Party is openly encouraging caravan after caravan of illegal aliens to violate our laws and break into our country. Right now is the sole result of Democrat laws and activist Democrat judges that do whatever they want and that prevent us from returning illegal aliens back home to Central America and other parts of the world.
Wow. So let me start with Greg. So
yes.
Here he is. We've been talking about, can he tone it down a little bit given what's going on with the bombing and everything? And here he is saying, Democrats are encouraging the caravan. I think previously some were saying, George Soros might be paying them. Democrats are encouraging them, activist judges. Is this fair?
I think it is fair when anytime a person brings up kind of a logical argument about the consequences of waving a caravan through, they are called bigots or xenophobic or racist. So that way, by scaring people and not actually saying the logical consequences, I do think that helps. The troops, though, are telling you something very clear. This is not happening. The caravan is destined to fail. Yeah. So those feeding this spectacle with cameras and emotional testimony, they're not helping anybody. You think you care, but you are actually driving a caravan that is then expanding and multiplying because essentially you're saying, keep going, keep going. They're going to meet an army. It's not going to happen. And I feel, and this is, for the Democrats, this is what happens when your ideas are brought to a logical conclusion, complete with visuals.
So, Dana, in fact, they are still more than 1,000 miles away. We already have 2,100 troops on the border. Trump is talking about sending 800 more to help with Homeland Security.
Well, part of it is that it's not he wants to send troops to the border, not just to deal with the caravan, but the fact that regardless of the caravan, like last week we were told by the commissioner for the Border Patrol, 640 illegal crossings attempted a day. So it's not just for the caravan, which is 1,000 miles away. It is for this push that keeps coming. Politically, if you look at Senator Donnelly and Senator McCaskill, red state Democrats, they're in states where President Trump won by plus 20. This is not the issue that they want to deal with. And conventional wisdom in Washington, D.C. would tell you that it's not good if you're a Democrat to bring up immigration and then to be tough on the border. But what's happening in the Southwest, Dean Heller, who is the most vulnerable Senate Republican, he's now plus 6 in a Reuters poll. McSally starting to pull away in Arizona. So the Democrats, when we talk about the blue wave, the House might be one thing, but the Senate looks like it's increasingly out of reach. And I think that Kavanaugh being one, the economy being another, Trump being out there and campaigning for them, but you can't discount the fact that immigration is still an issue that people want to vote on.
Well, I think Republicans want to vote on. I think it's the number one issue for Republicans, not
In
for
some states.
Democrats. In some states, what do you mean by that?
Because healthcare still is one of the number one issues.
Yeah, I was going to say
regardless.
for Democrats and for independents, healthcare is the number one issue. But I think for some Republicans, immigration. And so, Jesse, that brings me to you. It looks like the president is pushing a culture wars, fear type issue that's in order to stir his base.
Juan, you've been repeating that same argument for a month. It doesn't make it right. I don't think there's anything he's doing to stoke a culture war. He's just saying we have a country with borders that need to be protected against people that think they have a right to just come across willy-nilly. I have a press release from the people that are running the show, People Without Borders. This is not a local group. This is a third-party group. You know what they say? They're demanding respect for, quote, the international right to migrate.
Oh, geez.
So anybody, anywhere can walk across the border of any country, and they have a right to do that. Think about that. As Dana knows, the Treaty of Westphalia established the concept of the nation state. And we saw what happened in Europe when all of these Syrian refugees flew across to the EU, and it caused absolute chaos. Well, even now Merkel is regretting that decision. And people are building walls, and you have Brexit. So that backfired big time. George W. Bush sent National Guard to the border.
Yep.
Barack Obama sent 1,200 National Guard to the border. Sometimes you
Hey, wait
need-
a second. I thought a minute ago you said the Democrats want open borders.
Well, it was causing him such political
I
problems
see.
that he had to go deal with people that were
Wow.
coming across with
Imagine
children.
that.
Remember, that was when he was also separating children from their families.
So, Pam, let me turn to you, because today's reporting on the news was about how, in fact, the caravan looks to be getting smaller because people are suffering exhaustion, heat exhaustion, dehydration, and you know they're still walking.
Well, I hope the mothers with the babies that you've seen, and there aren't that many of them, thank goodness, have turned around and gone back. Because somebody's feeding them a line if they think they're going to get into our country, because they're not. So I hope they've gone home. Let me tell you from a prosecutor's point of view, Juan, the last case I was working on before I ran for Attorney General, the last case, it was a car carrier from Mexico coming into our country, and in the pipes that carried the cars, resistant to dog sniffing, stuffed full of kilos of cocaine and assault rifles from Mexico, and we stopped it in Florida. That's why we have to protect our borders.
What
Well, I think
highway is that
everybody agrees with Hey, you can't go down. Hey.
He has a right to migrate.
I do have a right
to migrate.
That's
Mexico?
white line fever.
All right, but you know what I can't stand is all the phony stuff online that it seems to me makes the caravan out to be like an army approaching. I just don't think that's real.
I think the visuals
7,000.
tell the story.
Pretty bad visual.
You know what
Yeah.
the AP said, Juan? They called it a ragtag army of the poor.
Yeah,
That was
well,
the AP that said that.
That's the poor is the operable word there. It's
I
not
was going to
army.
go ragtag army.
You like that better. All right.
The AP did.
Jesse wins. Brown University taking on so-called toxic masculinity with a new course. And we've got the man to give you the details right here on The Five. Straight ahead.
So good.
It's the phrase you hear these days from dopes pretending to be smart. Toxic masculinity. The gist, masculinity is poison. Forget the great achievements that took great risk on the part of men and even resulted in their deaths. Nope, men are violent, sex-mad animals. And so Brown University offers a course aimed at unlearning toxic masculinity. We used to call this basket weaving 101. If you're willing to give Brown 50 grand for this crap, you need to unlearn common sense too. Besides, it makes no sense. I mean, if men are so toxic, why would you want them detoxing on your campus? My prediction, unlearning toxic masculinity will soon be replacing Western civ. After all, there's no question men are more aggressive than women. It's science. And it doesn't hurt to civilize unruly cats. It's what dads and moms used to do before we decided they sucked. And men do live shorter lives. Just look at me. But mainly because of the risks taken to attract and protect the people we love. But if you believe this is about appreciating men while trimming away the rough parts, you kid yourself. This is pure class hatred based on stereotypes meant to demean a group of people. It's the branding of a gender by angry, bitter radicals. It's also sexist. If you don't believe me, just create your own class for Brown and call it Unlearning Toxic Femininity. How long do you think that'll last? Well, then again, maybe it's in the works already, designed to focus on those horrible, toxic stay-at-home moms who voted for Trump. All right, Dana, let's say you're at Brown, which I believe is a university, and would you date a guy who is taking a
Never.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's like not even a question.
Yes.
Like, you know how we do these stories about remember dating tips, and you've got Gutfeld's dating tips?
Yes.
Yeah, nowhere on any dating tip should you be taking this class.
Yeah.
Nowhere. No. Also, I think a better test would be for men from Brown to have to go work on a ranch.
Yes, exactly.
Right? For like a month.
And I'm saying that as someone who couldn't work on a ranch.
They would take you, though, at home, back home.
I could use ranch.
They would love to have you come visit.
Yes, no, it would end badly. Juan, are you filled with toxic masculinity? Are you a
Do you
toxic
feel you
male?
need the class?
I could actually, Pam, I think I could use the class because it seems to me, you know, the male need to be dominant, and the way that we look at sex and the interaction, some things have puzzled me throughout my life. Like, for example,
Explain that one.
I'll go back.
Let's dig deep.
I'll tell you one, Jesse, because because you know you're a guy too. But like
We're on
the
television,
the O.J. Simpson case, I could never understand why a woman would go back to a guy that was beating her. It just was puzzling to me. And then I heard from other people, oh no, that's not unusual. And I'm like, that's nuts. And then my niece is a prosecutor in D.C. and she tells me people come from some countries and they'll say, oh yeah, that's the way men act. Men hit women. And I'm like, what? Where is that from?
I don't know.
How is that a
I don't know if
defense?
OJ is what they mean when they say toxic masculinity.
I think that is.
You do?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
I think he's
what
just
Brown
called
I think you should go survey the class, Jesse.
Yeah, well, I have a very long history at Brown. The last time I was shooting a Waters World there, a guy with a skirt chased me around and heckled me the whole time. They hate me up there. It's because I'm so toxic. I think that's really what it is. But I agree with Dana. I've always been under the assumption that women are attracted to men that are manly, that make a lot of money, that work with their hands, that sweep you off your feet, that hold the door for you, take care of you, and act tough. You know, don't cry, never show their feelings.
Okay, yeah, that's
That's exactly what Dana said.
Dana, speak up. Speak up.
I'm going to let Pam speak for me.
Pam, do you think this feels like a re-education camp for the evil male to me? I don't know.
Well, as an employer or as a grad school, can you imagine looking on transcripts, seeing unleashing toxic masculinity? What grade did you get? If you didn't get an A, you're going to be in big trouble taking that class. First of all, this needs to be learned, obviously, much younger in the home by the parents. If you're in college and you still have these issues, you shouldn't.
And by the way, the issues are, they just don't like men.
You probably
So
but at Brown, don't you think that guys sign up for this class thinking that they're going to get a date?
Yes.
Okay.
Really?
And they might get a date.
Toxic
But do you want to
masculinity.
date a woman who's interested in taking a toxic masculinity?
You want to date any woman in college.
Yes,
You'll
exactly.
take any course.
And women at Brown probably want them to take that class, and then they can talk about it and things like that. But I don't think it'll last.
I don't think so either. But this is now the new thing is to call it toxic.
Yeah.
That's like if you said this about women, your toxic femininity, you would probably be
You
fired.
should write that article tomorrow.
Really?
Toxic femininity. I think it'll be great.
What would be the symptoms, Dana, of toxic femininity?
Oh, we talk about them all the time.
Do we?
I think.
Oh, really? All right.
Tease.
Yes, tease now. All right. An absurd new fashion trend and much more up next in Fast the 7.
I'm reading books. Who wants love without the love?
Welcome back. Time for the fastest 7. First up, chewing gum etiquette.
as at this point, this is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice President Bush called this in 1980? Anyone?
A dispute over a noisy package of gum led to a brawl at a classical music concert in Sweden. Apparently, one concert goer thought the lady next to him was being too loud with her gum and tossed it across the room, prompting her to slap him across the face. This seems like something you would get involved
No,
with, Greg.
100% totally
And Dana.
justified. Sorry, I pitched
Both of
this
you.
3 days ago. This almost happened to me today. I had to go to the eye doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone should go to the eye doctor. And I was getting a little tea to take upstairs for my appointment. And this woman next to me had her headphones in, and she had this bag. And she was eating a croissant, but she was taking little bites and crinkling the paper the entire time. But she couldn't hear it because she had her earphones in. And I thought of this woman who was chewing her gum at the concert. You can't do that.
I just want the audience to know when my phone dings during the show, Dana shoots daggers at me. She's very auditory sensitive.
Peter and I haven't been to the movies in 15 years because of this.
Really?
Yeah, really.
God, what a lucky
Well, you
man.
haven't missed much, all right?
You know what this tells you, though? Heated rhetoric holds nothing compared to proximity.
Yeah.
It's like it's all about the proximity of an annoyance. For example, if somebody told you you could punch somebody in the face with no consequence for somebody 300 miles away for crinkling a bag, you go, why?
Yeah.
But if it's somebody next to you in the subway, you'd go, hell yeah!
If somebody told you to turn your headphones down on a plane.
That's why the media is so angry all the time, because they live in Manhattan.
Yes.
And they're all like this all the time, riding the subway.
Proximity creates all hostility.
That's right.
That's how wars happen.
Right. That's why you have a very large estate somewhere that no one knows.
That's why everybody in Kansas is happy.
That's right. Juan?
Well, you know, I thought your facts were off because as I read the story,
Excuse me, Juan?
she was opening a brand new package of gum. And at some level
It's
you could.
crinkly and it makes sense. And she's there at a concert.
That's what I think. Yeah. So, I mean, I would tolerate because I think, you're in a concert, it's music. So, but I would tolerate someone just opening a Lifesaver or something. But a whole package and making a big deal out of it? Come on,
You're
lady.
supposed to drink champagne at something like
Something
that,
like
not
that.
chew gum. So gauche. What do you think?
I think Juicy Fruit should use it. The gum worth fighting for.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good idea.
We should get part of that royalty.
All right, I want a cut of the check. Next up, the new bizarre winter fashion trend, nose warmers. A British company getting a lot of attention for a line of products that promise to keep your nose nice and toasty this winter. The question is, would you actually wear one of these things? I mean, I might wear one, but probably not with the leopard print.
I can see where they're going.
Right.
But I think it's better to have the whole half face mask thing. You know,
Looks like Rudolph.
Yeah, I don't think I would do this, but I understand. I mean, when your nose is cold, like mine is right now because it's freezing in the studio, I could see why you'd want it.
This is a prank. They're wearing a thong. They're wearing the Chippendale dancer's thong right now. By the way, I have a nose warmer. It's called my finger.
Oh, God.
By the way, I believe this is for Coke heads. That's what it's for.
Oh.
For Coke heads to hide their missing septums.
Smart.
Yeah.
The Brits do love the Coke. I didn't ask. All right, I'm not going to bring it up. All right, Juan.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is, the problem here is if you were an Eskimo, how would you kiss? Because they kiss with their nose.
That's the problem. Ken thought it all the way through.
If you could translate that brilliant analogy to politics, we'd really love to have you.
But I must say, doesn't that thing look like a bra?
Yeah, it's like a...
You and Gutfeld really
What is
get your
going
mind out of the
on?
gutter,
But
guys.
look at it, it's ridiculous.
Pam doesn't even know what we're talking about. She's like, it's never been this cold in Florida.
Well, I know. I was saying, I hope they come with pumpkin spice scents.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a nice idea.
Medium size and with sunscreen.
Okay.
Nobody would wear that.
Sunscreen.
I think this is a fake story.
Did we just get hoaxed?
I think we might have.
Plus on my segment.
Yes.
And finally, with Halloween less than a week away, 538.com is using its polling prowess to come up with the ultimate Halloween candy power ranking. The overall winners are Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, with Reese's Minis second, and then Twix, Kit Kats, and Snickers rounding out the top 5. All right, so this is the number one candy in America. Do we all agree or do we disagree?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You know what? The Brits also like Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
They do.
They do.
They have
snort 'em.
great taste.
They have it with their cocaine.
Hey, wait a second.
Reese's and
wait a
Coke.
second. Everybody agreed that Reese's Peanut Butter Cups is number one?
Yeah.
What about Snickers? I think that's the number
They're
one.
up there, Juan.
Oh, okay.
You got to
Yeah,
read the
but it's
package.
not
but
number one.
you were saying the number one.
It's
It
top
is.
five.
Did
Snickers
you
is
ever
in the top
have
five.
somebody in your neighborhood on trick or treat that they didn't have any candy and they would like give you spare change?
Yes.
And I thought that was so weird. And then I realized that I'm that person. Because I don't have kids, so I just totally for space on Halloween, and all of a sudden the doorbell rings and there's these like short creatures screaming at you. And so you have to run
And you're
around.
like, wait, why did you come out of the basement?
I give them Campbell's soup.
You don't eat Campbell's soup.
I give them cans of Campbell's soup. I give them socks. Anything that's around my house.
You
The
just give
socks
it
would
away.
probably fit the kids.
Yes.
I'm the kind of guy that gives like the big jumbo size. I'm a really good candy giver.
Hey, you know what was
just-
great?
What's your
about
address, Jesse?
You know what was great about this list,
Maxine's
Jesse?
going to come over and yell at me if you tell her. What?
Right. They said the worst candies.
Oh, what are
Oh,
they?
what are the worst candies?
So the worst candy, it turns out, was to give a kid circus peanuts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was surprised at number 2, which was candy corn. I thought,
I like candy
I
corn.
love candy corn.
wow,
goes
that's the
both
worst.
ways.
But how about this one, Mary Jane's? I remember when I was a kid, those things get stuck in your teeth. They're
No,
I
those
remember
are no
that.
good.
Dennis take those.
right. But here,
Circus
yeah,
peanuts. You got to be really careful when you say it.
I was disappointed that Tootsie Rolls was also on the worst candy.
Yeah, I could see that though. I mean, you gotta go to
what
the
about
dentist
sugar
after,
daddies?
yeah. I like sugar daddies.
I mean the
Sugar
suckers.
babies.
What about Twix?
I think you angered
It's a
Dana.
second sexual reference in the same segment. Just keep that in mind. What do we think about Twix? Do we
Small
like Twix?
Twixes
I like
are
a Twix, though.
disappointing. You got to have a big Twix. The small one, they're too
I'd
small.
also like a Kit Kat. You can make those last.
Am I the
for a
only
while.
one that's going to eat candy during this segment?
I'll take a Kit Kat, please.
All right, here we go.
Peanut
I'm on
butter
a no
All right,
sugar
one more
diet.
thing's up next. We're going to give Dana a Kit Kat.
Oh, those are great.
Welcome back. Time for the fastest 7. First up, chewing gum etiquette.
As at this point, this is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice President Bush called this in 1980? Anyone?
A dispute over a noisy package of gum led to a brawl at a classical music concert in Sweden. Apparently, one concert goer thought the lady next to him was being too loud with her gum and tossed it across the room, prompting her to slap him across the face. This seems like something you would get involved
No,
with, Greg.
100% totally
And
justified.
Dana.
Sorry, I pitched
Both of
this
you.
3 days ago. This almost happened to me today. I had to go to the eye doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone should go to the eye doctor. And I was getting a little tea to take upstairs for my appointment. And this woman next to me had her headphones in and she had this bag. And she was eating a croissant, but she was taking little bites and crinkling the paper the entire time. But she couldn't hear it because she had her earphones in. And I thought of this woman who was chewing her gum at the concert. You can't do that.
I just want the audience to know when my phone dings during the show, Dana like shoots daggers at me. She's very auditory sensitive.
Peter and I haven't been to the movies in 15 years because of this.
Really?
Yeah, really.
God, what a lucky
Well, you
man.
haven't missed much, all right?
You know what this tells you, though? Heated rhetoric holds nothing compared to proximity.
Yeah.
It's like it's
Yeah,
all about
yeah.
the proximity of an annoyance. For example, if somebody told you you could punch somebody in the face with no consequence for somebody 300 miles away for crinkling a bag, you go, why?
Yeah.
But if it's somebody next to you in the subway, you'd go, hell yeah!
If somebody told you to turn your headphones down on a plane.
Yeah.
That's why the media is so angry all the time, because they live in Manhattan.
Yes.
And they're all like this all the time, riding the subway.
Proximity creates all hostility.
That's right.
That's how wars happen.
Right, that's why
I
you have
made
a
that
very
up.
large estate somewhere that no one knows.
That's why everybody in Kansas is happy.
That's right. Juan?
Well, you know, I thought your facts were off because as I read the story,
Excuse me, Juan?
she was opening a brand new package of gum. And at some level
Because
you
it's
could.
crinkly and it makes sense. And she's there at a concert.
loud.
That's what
the
I
foil.
think. Yeah. So I mean, I would tolerate because I think
No.
you're in a concert. It's music. So, but I would tolerate someone just opening a lifesaver or something. But a whole package and making a big deal out of it. Come on,
You're
lady.
supposed to drink champagne at something like
Something
that,
like
not
that.
chew gum. So gauche. What do you think?
I think Juicy Fruit should use it. The gum worth fighting for.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good idea.
We should get part of that royalty.
All right, I want a cut of the check. Next up, the new bizarre winter fashion trend, nose warmers. A British company getting a lot of attention for a line of products that promise to keep your nose nice and toasty this winter. The question is, would you actually wear one of these things? I mean, I might wear one, but probably not with the leopard print.
I can see where they're going.
Right.
but I think it's better to have like the whole like half face mask thing. You know,
Looks like
the-
Rudolph.
Yeah, I don't think I would do this, but I
Eric
understand. I
Trump?
mean, when your nose is cold, like mine is right now because it's freezing in this studio, I could see why you'd want it.
They're
Let's put
wearing,
dog paw
this is
on
a
it.
prank. They're wearing a thong. They're wearing the Chippendale dancer's thong right now. By the way, I have a nose warmer. It's called my finger.
Oh, God.
By the way, I believe this is
a
for Coke heads. That's what it's for. For Coke heads to hide their missing septums.
Smart.
Yeah.
The Brits do love the Coke.
I didn't.
I'm not going to bring it up. All right, Juan.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is, like, you know, the problem here is if you were an Eskimo, how
Yes.
would you kiss? Because they kiss with their nose.
Oh, wow.
That's the problem. He hadn't thought it all the way
If
through.
you could translate
Yeah.
that brilliant analogy
Thank
to
you.
politics,
Yes,
we'd really love
yeah.
to have you.
But I
on.
must say, doesn't that thing look like a bra?
Yeah, it's like a.
You and Gutfeld really
What is
get your
going
mind out of the
on?
gutter,
But
guys.
look at it, it's ridiculous.
Pam doesn't even know what we're talking
I don't-
about. She's like,
I
it's
don't
never
see-
been this cold in Florida.
Well, I know. I was saying, I hope they come with pumpkin spice scents.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's a nice idea.
Medium size and with sunscreen.
Okay.
Nobody would wear this.
Sunscreen. Sunscreen.
I think this is a fake story.
Did we just get hoaxed?
I think we
Yeah.
might have.
Us on my segment.
Yes.
And finally, with Halloween less than a week away, 538.com is using its polling prowess to come up with the ultimate Halloween candy power ranking. The overall winners are Reese's Peanut Butter Cups,
Yay.
with Reese's Minis second, and then Twix, Kit Kats, and Snickers rounding out the top 5. All right, so this